Okay, folks, tonight we're on another tour of Hike the Florida Trail near you. And tonight we're going to be looking at Rice Creek Conservation Area down near Palatka. Let's talk just a little bit about the Florida National Scenic Trail for those of you that haven't seen this pitch before. The Florida National Scenic Trail runs all the way through Florida, starting down here at the Big Cypress National Preserve, comes up through the center of Florida, splits into two, whichever trail you want to take, and then all the way over to Pensacola. About 1,300 miles. I think, you know, the mileage changes sometimes. People say more, but it's about 1,300. A Floridian, Jim Kern, was hiking on the Appalachian Trail back in the '64. He said, hey, why don't we have one of these in Florida? And so he came back and got a group together, formed the Florida Trail Association, and began building the trail. First place they started was in the Ocala National Forest, where they were welcomed by the National Forest folks to start there with the trail. And now it's pretty much complete all through Florida. There's a few places where you still have to road walk, where they don't have rights or something like that, but they're still working on making it entirely a trail. It was designated as a National Scenic Trail in 1983. There's several parts of the Florida Trail that are near us. In the red circle is some of the places I've been. Goldhead Branch State Park, we did a program on that, Camp Blanding. Also the Tony National Forest, and Osceola National Forest are there, and of course Rice Creek. So the three we've done programs on is Goldhead, Camp Blanding, and Rice Creek, and they're all within about 30 or 40-minute drive from Interstate 295, so that's nice. Also near us are the blue circled areas. When people talk about, gee, where should I go hiking on the Florida Trail if I just want to go out for a day or two or just a day? Almost everybody suggests two places, the Ocala National Forest and the Suwannee River. And those are both within, say, an hour, hour and a half drive of us. And when we were doing outings, we did day hikes in the Ocala National Forest and also along the Suwannee. So they're not too far away to get out there and look at those as well. So tonight we're going to look at Rice Creek Conservation Area. We're going to look at the location, talk briefly about what we know about the history of the area, and then we're going to take a hike. So Rice Creek is located down here near Palatka. You just take 17 south from 295 down through Green Cove Springs, and then down close to Palatka, it splits. You take the split off to 19, and then State Road 100 for about 4.5 miles to the Rice Creek Conservation Area. This has always been a swampy area, and in the late 1700s, two British loyalists who didn't want to be a part of the United States came to Spanish Florida and settled here and carved out rice and indigo plantation in this area. And so a lot of the area we'll be hiking over is the old rice plantation. So we're going from dike to dike on a million bridges. Place was also turned into pine logging and then became public land for conservation as this area flows into the St. Johns River. So it was part of the water management area. Picture you see there on the right are some baby gators I caught a picture of on one of my hikes. And on the left is the famous Rice Creek Hilton. We'll be visiting that a little later on. So let's talk a little bit about the trail. Coming off 100, you can park right here, not too far away. You can see the Florida Trail runs this way. You can see I've kind of highlighted that in orange and runs up through here and on north. So you walk down a little bit of a road and then down a little bit more of a road to hit the trail, and then we hike the trail in through the Rice Creek area and back. I'll talk to you a little more about the trail and the way we go. There's also some local loop trails that you're on when you hike in here. Rice Creek Hilton location is right there. And there's a little boardwalk out to an overlook area where you can see a pretty large cypress tree, and we'll take a look at that too. And then the Florida Trail heads on south. There's a long quarter-mile, 1,900-foot boardwalk called Hoffman Crossing. We're not going to hike down there, but I've got a couple of pictures. We can take a peek at that. So the total hike is about 6 miles, and that's a little long, but there's a couple shortcuts I can talk about. You can see the mileages I put in here in red, so you can kind of get an idea about how long the mileage is. So like I said, from the parking lot, we got to go down the road, then we got to get to the tree line where we bump into the Florida Trail, and we take the Florida Trail on down here to about 1.8 miles. There's a junction here. If you want to turn back at this point, you can turn down here, maybe visit Rice Creek Hilton and go back. But we're going to continue on down on this loop. And then there's also a shortcut through the loop right here at the 2.6 mile point. You can cut about 1.5 miles off the hike by cutting across the loop at that point. We're not going to do that. We're going to go on down. So we head on down around the loop, visit the big cypress tree, come back around. Then there's a junction here where the local trails take over and the Florida Trail heads on to the south. So we'll come back around the loop, visit the Hilton, and then come back. And then you got two choices about going back. Sometimes when I've led hikes here, I've had to go back on the road because this area here was pretty flooded and it was tough to get through the first time. We didn't want to do it twice. Or if it's dry, you can come back and just take the wooded trail back. This area circled right here is pretty low and is often flooded and wet after rains, and it doesn't drain very well. So it might be a week and a half after it rained and it's still watery. So the day I went down here with my wife and my granddaughter, it was still wet from a rain that had occurred over a week ago. So keep that in mind. You know, if you just want to put some Crocs on, slog on through it, then change your shoes back, you can do that because the rest of the trail is dry. And then coming back, you can take the road walk rather than the trail if you want to do that. We're going to go across 33 footbridges, and most of them are numbered, which is fun. And so we'll be walking through a real swamp, which is pretty nice. So this is what you'll see when you come down 100. You'll see that sign that says Rice Creek Conservation Area. Just take a left and pull in there. And a park, and then we start down this road here. About 1/10 of a mile down, you turn right and just head down toward the tree line. So this is always dry, and it's a pretty trail, of course, kind of open, but not a pretty trail. And you can follow along where we're going by looking at the map down there in the lower right. So we'll come into the forest finally and meet into the Florida Trail. There's a kiosk there with a map. And in that little mailbox is a log if you want to log in. Lots of times Florida Trail through hikers will use that log to let other people know where they are and that sort of thing. So my granddaughter just wanted to sign it for fun. Then we go about 1.3 miles through a hardwood hammock. And this is the area that can get wet. The first part's pretty dry. It's well marked with the orange blazes that you see on the Florida Trail. So there's not any problem getting lost in here. This is what the trail looks like. Somebody's unmuted themselves. Please mute yourself again. This is what the trail looked like on the day we were there. We could manage to get off on the sides, right and left, and to get through it without getting our shoes too wet. This wasn't, but I've seen it a lot wetter than this. I've seen it so wet, I've had to cancel group hikes down there because it was so bad. But about 3/4 of a mile here can get pretty wet. But I know it's dry now. I've seen on Facebook some Florida trail hikers talking about going through Rice Creek and it was all dry because there hadn't been any rain for a while. So we finally get to 1.8 miles. We reach our first footbridge. You notice it's got a number 1. And this is the intersection right down here where you kind of go straight to stay on the Florida Trail, or you could take this little trail for a shortcut and go right down and turn around and go back. But we'll stay on the Florida Trail. You'll notice the local trail is called the Cedar Swamp Trail. But we're going to continue to, and there's a sign there that leads to the Rice Creek Hilton, but we're going to follow the orange blazes and continue straight. So across the bridge, there's bridge number 2. Bridge number 3, and so forth all the way through. This bridge here was rebuilt after the last hurricane, I believe. And so this trail was shut down for quite a while when they went in and did a complete rebuild on this longer bridge. And we can thank Florida Trail Association volunteers and the Forest Service for getting in there and rebuilding this thing. They had to bring boats in and everything else to do this, rebuild this trail. Again, we're hopping from dike to dike. So this was all a rice area, and it's all built up by folks who were enslaved back in those days. Get some great swamp views as you go through. I would think maybe half the time I go through here, I can spot gators. One time I went through and I was checking out the trail. I was leading a hike there. And a few days before I was checking out the trail, there's a huge gator right in the middle of the trail. And so I threw some stuff at him to see if he'd move. No way, that gator wasn't afraid of me. So I had to turn around and go back. I wasn't going to mess with him. Glad he wasn't there on the weekend when I brought the group in. He or she were gone. Then at 2.6 miles, we come at the next shortcut. This is the one that I talked about that cuts across the loop. Again, it's still called the Cedar Swamp Trail. So if you want to cut your hike short, you don't want to do the 6 miles, you can cut down here and head back that way if you want to do that. And that's down this way a little bit is where I saw that gator. So I had to cut my hike short that day. So if you do turn down, then you'll be following yellow blazes down to the other side of the loop. But we're going to keep on going. So we continue on down to the very end of the loop where we're going to see that big cypress tree. We see a nice little spot there for my granddaughter to hide in. This is a hollow cypress tree. It's been there forever, still standing. And I said, "What's it like in there?" She said she looked up, just saw spider webs, and saw the sky. So we finally come to the end of the loop, and you can see where the arrow is. And then there's a boardwalk that goes down here that gives you a better view of the cypress overlook. And you can see a little sign there, little cypress sign. There's also a larger sign there as well. So this is kind of a close-up of the tree. It doesn't really do you justice, but this tree's well over 100 feet tall, circumference well over 25 feet. And it clearly stands out amongst the other trees. Here's another picture. Once in a while, this area is dry enough, you could probably hop over the fence and walk out there. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. So you get a feel there of that person standing there about how big that tree is. So it's kind of neat to see. And you can see all the cypress knees sticking up around it. So this gives you an idea about the water, what the water level is most times, about 3 feet. So we come back off that boardwalk and continue on our loop. Then we come to the intersection where the Florida Trail continues south, and to the left we take the local trails back, so to loop back. So that's at the 3.8 mile point already. Further down on the Florida Trail, about a mile down on the Florida Trail down here is what's known as Hoffman Crossing, and that's about a 1,900-foot boardwalk that goes through the swamp. And you can imagine what a headache that is to maintain. And our Florida Trail volunteers had to go in there after several hurricanes and trees down and rebuild that thing. But I'll give you a kind of a picture of it. If you want to go down there and take a look, like I say, it's about a mile down this way. And then, so that would make your hike even longer, probably about eight miles, or you can just look at my picture. So this is the kind of boardwalk that you have that you go through for about a quarter of a mile. Part of it goes over dry land that sometimes is wet. Part of it goes over areas like this that are always wet. So that's the famous Hoffman Crossing. But we'll go back and continue down the loop trail, the local loop trail. We don't go very far, about a quarter of a mile and over a few more bridges until we come to the sign that leads us to the right, and then we see the camp sign on the tree there, and that designates that we're at the beautiful Rice Creek Hilton. So this was built by volunteers. I don't know how long ago. I was trying to look that up, but probably 10 or 15 years ago. This was built, and this was meant as a overnight area for hikers. You know, when you hike the Appalachian Trail, you come into shelters of some sort like this every 7, 10, 11 miles for, to camp at. And these campsites have water and picnic tables and some shelter. On the Florida Trail, when you hike the Florida Trail, there might be 3 or 4 of these on the whole trail. There's only about 3 or 4 that I know of. But the Rice Creek Hilton is one of them, and it's certainly the most exotic, being the 2 stories. So it's great to stop for overnight hikes. And this was just off the trail of 100, 200 meters or so off the White Blaze Trail that we're taking now. Here's another picture of it. So there's a nice campsite here with a fire ring and benches and that sort of thing, and a logbook for hikers to fill out. So this is always on your hike. Is always a nice stop. So now we'll head on from the Hilton. We turn right and continue on the White Trail, and then we come to a junction that gives us the 2 options I was talking about before. So we're right at this junction, and you can take the Florida Trail back the way you came. You come to that other intersection where we saw the Cedar Swamp sign, and head right back out the way you did. And through the water, you hike through on the way in if it was water. If it's not, it's dry, so you can just take the dry hike through the woods. The other option is to take the road hike. And on this day, I was outvoted 2-1 to take the road walk, but that was probably a good idea because it was still pretty wet. So your choice about what you want to do. Now, coming back on the road walk, we come through an open area with some absolutely amazing live oak trees. Isn't that a pretty shot there? And then it's just a matter of hiking back on the road like this. You can stretch out a little bit on this, go a little faster or whatever. Or if you're a little tired, you can go a little slower and you don't have to fight the trail and the roots and all that. So it's kind of up to you. But this is a pretty straight road back. There's a little hitch right here where you have to turn left. It's pretty obvious. And then you just come right back to the parking lot. So let's take a look at what we did. That was a fast 6 miles, wasn't it? Total hike 6 miles from the parking lot, about a 1/10 of a mile up. Then it's obvious we see a right turn, go into the tree line, take the Florida Trail, come to the first intersection with the Cedar Swamp Trail. You pretty much go straight here. The map kind of looks like a right turn, but it's pretty much straight. And then we take a loop over all those bridges. We come to that shortcut, if you want to take the shortcut across the loop, or we keep on going to the big cypress, then around to the intersection where the Florida Trail continues on to the south, to Hoffman Crossing, or we just take the White Blaze local trail back here. stop and visit the Rice Creek Hilton, and then back to that other intersection where we can either take a trail back the way we came or take the road walk.